What is going on, everybody? Thank you to those who popped over from the Badge Bros. Shout out to John and the Badge Bros. Nez couldn't make it, but always great to be drafting over there with them. Um, as we await DJ's entry into this second stream, just going to go over a couple of Best Buck Classic things, take a scroll through my exposures and through the draft boards just to see, exactly what we're looking at and just kill some time before we get into our second draft of the afternoon. So I know DJ has some stupid intro. I'm not even going to bother trying to find it. Let's just get into things. Let's talk about the hockey. All right, so as you can see, with the update pending, maybe 61 is the right number. Maybe you can't see it because it's not zoomed in. Let's see. Um, there we go. I've got a decent number of teams in. I'm nowhere close to where DJ's at the current moment, but just taking a quick scroll through some of my highest owned guys. I see Noah here. We'll talk round by round in just a second. We will get to Brant Clark. Thank you, fellas, for popping in the chat. But leading things off at my center exposures, I've talked a lot about Aho, especially in the Discord. Austin Matthews, we just covered with the Badge Bros. I'm taking a pretty aggressive stance on him. I haven't gotten too lucky with my other picks. Like I have one share of McDavid and I think, one share of McKinnon. And that's mostly I'm picking second and Matthews goes one or vice versa, or I'm picking third and Matthews goes second and so on is how I get those McKinnon and McDavid shares. But so Matthews being number one is not a surprise. But you see, I don't have 25% total of them. That's just, relatively poor luck, from a high level. Sebastian Aho at center 14, I think, has a ton of upside. I've talked a lot about him in the Discord, but basically he's a really, really good goal scorer that goes underappreciated for just how talented he is on a team that creates a lot of chances but can't finish them. He, year after year beats those odds in terms of converting on expected goal chances. So really like that bet on talent at just the 14th center. That's sort of like the last guy. If I'm going a zero center build, like I will take him, or if I'm going an elite center, I'll also take him because it's not too expensive of a price. Scrolling down a bit, Bedard, Malkin, Eichel, McTavish. Hurdle, I'm a bit cooler on than I was before. Same goes with Pedersen. Just some, the latest developments aren't sterling with respect to how I thought their usage and, teammates might play out. Pedersen with the injury, I'm fine being at ADP on him, even though I think he truly could be back to a round one guy next year. Jack Hughes, Wyatt Johnston, Nico Hischier, Elias Lindholm. Those are the guys I'm overweight on. I don't think there's anyone too notable that I'm like underweight on. Ask me questions if you have them. At wing is where I get pretty aggressive on Cutter and Ovi. The Cutter hasn't stopped. The Ovi has not stopped. The Cutter at his new ADP, I'm just frankly not getting to him. There's other targets that I have that I've not been getting because of my exposures to goalies and to Cutter and to Michkov. So like as these boards are evolving, I'll talk about some of the other guys at center or at wing that I'm looking to go after. I have my Cutter bags packed, so I'm not chasing him up the board too incredibly far, but I'll of course take him when the time is right. Michkov, Kaprizov is a guy who I think in that first round, I'm taking him at 6, I'm taking him at 7, I'm taking him at 8, sometimes even there at 9. That's why I have so much Kaprizov. I think it's rare that, guys can score 55 goals in this league, and I think Kaprizov is the main guy there who can do so. If Rantanen does it, it's probably because McKinnon's also smashing again. So I'm a little bit more leery of like going all in on Rantanen in that same way. Scrolling down, Tyler Toffoli, we talked a lot about how Toffoli is just a bet on Macklin being a really good player. He goes pretty late for that possibility, and I think that Macklin's ceiling comes through Tyler Toffoli versus where Connor Bedard last year, as the highly touted number one rookie, was more of a guy who was going to shoot himself. He was going to do it all for himself. and I don't think Celebrini's quite wired in that same way. So I really like getting Toffoli, who is a bona fide NHL goal scorer in the absolute perfect role, line one, power play one. It's not going anywhere. I like that bet for sure. Following that up with guys you've definitely heard us talk about: Jack Quinn, Dylan Gunther, Owen Tippett, Philip Forsberg, Jason Robertson, Gabe Villardi, Kevin Fiala, Matt Boldy, Tyler Bertuzzi, JJ Paterka. If any of those guys are a surprise to you, I urge you to scroll back in the feed here and listen to more older videos, older streams, because we've gone, deep dive, yelling and screaming about why all these dudes are great selections. I will say some Nashville stuff surprised me. We'll get to that as we scroll through some rankings and ADP as well. But those are my main targets at the wing position. Um, Everyone else is pretty flat, pretty much as you would expect. And then I have, I think, 0 Brady Tkachuk. Yeah, I have 1 share of Brady Tkachuk. That's sort of like the guy I'm fading in the first round to make room for all of this Forsberg and Kaprizov. Let's see, a couple comments here. Just since we're getting, taking Forsberg over Brady. Honestly, at this point, like I don't think I've ever made that decision. I think I was making it a few weeks ago. I believe that the power play is going to have Forsberg back on the right side, which concerns me a little bit. And also, I think where first Forsberg goes, I want to start mixing in some Kale McCarr. So that Forsberg is probably going to wind up in the 10 to 12% range. I'm not overly concerned by it. Yeah, because 18% is real high. And again, I was taking him at 10, 11, 12 for the first couple weeks, first couple months of best puck. And I'm a bit cooler on that than I was then. All right. Some other comments that again we'll get to as we scroll. Here are my D exposures. I just came off the Badge Bro show mentioning my Zellweger take. I'm still pretty high on him. I think that he has a ton of upside. I am a little bit worried about his floor versus some of these other late round options. They just don't have the same floor concerns. Justin Falk, Thomas Harley, Shea Theodore, to an extent, Noah Hannafin, Seth Jones, all these guys come to mind as just very sound, safe guys in the final 4 rounds of your draft. That regardless of circumstance are going to put up 20, 25 point weeks regularly. And that I think can spike to the 40s that you're looking for from defensemen to score in this format. Brent Clark, I just talked about on Badge Bros as well. He is a guy I'm chasing up the board. I'm going to be taking him aggressively. Just with the Drew Doughty injury, he's the direct beneficiary. Even if he only gets 20 minutes a night, that's a huge step up from where he was last year. He's going to get a power play role boost, and he was already one of the most dominant per minute offensive fantasy defensemen that we had in the game last year. So, with an actual role, I think the sky's truly the limit for him, and especially from a fantasy standpoint. Like, I'm not that worried if, he's only playing 19 minutes a night and that Jordan Spence takes 22 minutes a night because, maybe he's better defensively or something. In this game, we're playing for the shots, we're playing for the blocks, we're playing for the points. And I think Brant Clark is going to have the absolute red carpet rolled out for him in that respect. So I'm very here for it. If he gets 20 minutes a night, he's going to be a top 5D. I think that's true. So yeah, definitely a buy right now on Brant Clark for these final few days and into the early DFS season for sure. Let's see. Anyone else interesting here? I don't think so. Defense is pretty boring, I think. The elite D I'm a little scared of. Darlene in particular, just if the Sabres are what they can be, he's probably going to be in contention for D number 1 of the season. And then Kale McCarr, I want more Kale McCarr. I just, I've considering that I'm anti McKinnon, that the main reason McKinnon could fail is that Kale McCarr just goes supernova and just takes back over. Last year, Kale McCarr was relatively uninvolved in the offense. And, as one might expect, that offense went somewhere and it flowed all through Nathan McKinnon. If McKinnon doesn't dominate the point share like he did last year, if he doesn't score all the goals, Kale McCarr is certainly a guy who could be scoring the goals and sort of flipping that build from 10 points for McKinnon play to 5 points for a McKinnon play. Those points would then filter into Makar. That's all super minor stuff because, again, these are top 10 fantasy players in the world. Hence why we need to really thread needles and split hairs here. In net, Darcy Kemper, I just think is the best goalie on the board at ADP. I still believe that, even though he's up a couple spots of ADP over the past few weeks. LA Kings have a great playoff schedule. They don't really have a viable backup option, and they're a team that just performs really well defensively throughout the regular season, at the very least. Like, guess what? They don't play Edmonton 82 times in the regular season, and so I trust Darcy. Even without Drew Doughty, that's an interesting wrinkle, but I do trust the LA Kings structure and their defensive forwards to sort of soften the burden on Darcy Kemper. And then as DJ is joining, here are the rest of my goalie exposures at the current moment. A couple guys that I'm currently buying on would be Stuart Skinner. Just sort of thinking through the range of outcomes for him, and goalie 10 makes no sense. Like, just straight up, like, the team's going to be
bad.
Yeah. And then UC Saros is another buy for me. I just think that he's the only guy who could play 62 games, and I would not be surprised whatsoever. So, more to come there in our betting show tomorrow night. But yeah, UC Saros is a guy I'm currently buying right now as well. So with DJ here, let's quickly go through the rankings because
did we get to all the questions too?
Not quite. I'll get you there.
Okay. I love it when you get me there.
Yes, on the casting couch.
On the casting couch.
DJ.
Thank you. I was just sharing this on Twitter and stuff. Did you share it in the Discord?
Yeah. Posted again that we're live, but I posted it in there earlier. So the general idea as we go through this, Noah here would love major targets from each round. Yes, we'll get you. We got that. Clark and Korpisalo. Korpisalo's it's certainly a decent pick late. I would not rely on Korpisalo like in every draft, like I would Brandt Clark, for example, because Jeremy Swayman should be back there, and it's very unlikely that Swayman is a true backup at any point. So, like, even if Korpisalo is great to start, I think your late season upside is really capped. With only 3 goalies, like, I'm not really too interested in that. If you get stuck there and you need to bail yourself out with a Korpisalo here and there, for sure. But don't discount the fact that, when the points really matter is in March, and it's just unlikely that Swayman is not the guy there come March, versus it's very possible that Brandt Clark is still power play 1 when Drew Doughty returns, if he's, a really good player. And guess what? Without Matt Roy, someone's got to be their number 2 right-handed defenseman, even with Drew Doughty. So if Brandt Clark can carve out that role for himself 20 minutes a night, he should be fine, going where he does in drafts. JJ Peterka is a great pick. I think we saw him on my exposures, but paired with Tage and Tuckett 5-on-5 on the power play, that role's not going anywhere. He's a good pick at ADP. I think Jack Quinn is the preferred target just because he goes so much later and is sort of on the perimeter of that power play. But yeah, that's splitting hairs for sure. Noah, I would just say the manifesto, the third one, has the exact answer that I'm going to give here in a lot more detail, but be very careful taking more than 2 guys in a stack. And if you want to read why, if you want to see the specifics, check out the manifesto, moods.beehive.com. Go to my Twitter account at Fake Moods. It's all there. Very easy to figure it out. And again, if you're doing 4, you're probably reaching. And so it's a big balance between reaching for ADP versus getting stacks that you just need to sort of navigate. And then finally, before we're back, no, that's totally a very good center room. If Matthews is not scoring, 50, 60% of weeks, you're probably screwed. And Dylan Strome in the last round, he's still going to put up a lot of points in a lot of weeks. Like, you're not bereft of options in the final round at center. So that's certainly not going to come across poorly at all when I do my end of season, bucketing and whatnot. That's going to be just fine there. So Webb PG 87 with Matthews, Horvat, and Dylan Strome, not too weak whatsoever.
No.
All right, DJ.
Yes.
Do you want to take a stroll through the
You want me
rounds
to?
and then draft?
Take a stroll through the rounds and then draft, as in.
Yes. Favorite pick in the first round. Cale Makar and up.
Yeah.
Go.
Kaprizov.
Perfect. I dig it. Makes sense for me. What about second round?
I'm gonna say Robertson. Yeah, I'll go with Jason
All right.
Robertson. I think
Perfect.
if it really is going to be Wyatt, Robertson, and Hintz, I think that line could really, really explode. I know who you're going to say now. Go right ahead.
It's got to be Samson, right? I named my cat Samson after Sam Reinhart, and so yeah, I'm buying the Kool-Aid that Jay poured me with his best puck projections over at puckluck.com, where he has Sam Reinhart going for 1 billion goals this year. That role on the power play is excellent. Kachuk is a masterful passer from beneath the goal line. And at 5-on-5 and on the power play, having Alex Barkov, who doesn't shoot himself to distribute, yeah, I think Sam Reinhart could very well do it again.
I mean, can I just say maybe a quick note on that? It's like people that think that that's not replicable, I think might forget how good Barkov is, and let's not forget what he did with Huberdeau. It's like maybe there's just something about Barkov, and maybe if you watch him play, or honestly just look up some highlights, you can see just how gifted he is in all facets of the game, not just offensively, but getting the puck out of his own zone and moving it to the offensive zone where the goals could be scored. So, like, I truly think he is probably better than we think, and yet maybe not perfect in this format is the problem. But still good in this. Not bad. I mean, he's still I think he's going at the right spot. But yeah, I think the point of all of this is like, yeah, wheels up. Round 3, I think it's a goalie is best case scenario. I'm honestly going to say Vasilevsky has been my favorite. Ottinger, I think is totally like, I think it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. But when you're right on Vasilevsky, I think you're more rewarded. Just because I think he gets more starts than Ottinger, but I think Ottinger has as much upside to win games. Like, so like their win totals could be similar, but I almost wonder if Vasilevsky couldn't outscore him. So I love it when Vasi slips to me.
Yeah, I like that argument. I mean, I wrote about Ovi on the newsletter, so I got to say Ovi. The fact that he's a third rounder just feels kind of ridiculous to me. So yeah, love me some Alex Ovechkin. My bags are fully packed. What about this fourth round, sir? Looking at options like Cole Caulfield, Adrian Kempe. You know, we got the Sorokin Swayman goalie bunch here. If you like some risk, how do you feel about the fourth round?
I mean, is Caulfield cheating?
No, I think the rules that we were given were major targets from each round. So if in the fourth round you Caulfield, do it.
Yeah. What's your take then? I feel like I know the answer, but I'll let you say it.
Yeah. It's Jack Eichel for me. He's just awesome. I don't get why he goes behind Braden Point, who is pretty reliant on Nikita Kucherov to generate points. I just think that if Eichel gets there, there's so many late options to stack with him, and he has the ceiling to compete with anyone ahead of him at the center position. Just a matter of him staying healthy. So we'll see how he does in that front this year.
Yeah. I think that was my biggest, like, I should have got more earlier guy. And I felt like a lot of my drafts, I would have him in the queue, and then someone like Matt or someone else would just snipe him from me. And now he's risen up to almost the correct spot, but I don't even think he's actually at the correct spot yet.
Well, then I guess his ADP is perfectly right then, GA, huh? So you can still take him.
Yeah, I mean, like I get what you're saying, but like he kind of had this injury that's probably resolved finally. You know what I mean? Like it kind of feels like the same situation we've seen with a number of guys that have these down years, but like I don't think that this is an injury that's going to persist as long as, like, this isn't a Landeskog injury where he had to like completely like replace his, part of his leg or whatever. I don't even honestly know what the Landeskog injury as well as I probably should, but like it's a neck thing, and I think it's actually going to be 100% now. And if it is,
for
like,
Eichel,
he could score.
Just
Yeah,
to
for
be
Eichel.
clear.
Yeah, just to be clear, like he could score 50. Like that's in his range of outcomes is 50 goals for sure.
Yeah. This round, I think my target's Stuart Skinner. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go Stuart
I
Skinner.
I've been taking Skinner honestly in the fourth round a lot, but I don't get Eichel
Yep,
now.
makes sense.
So but I will say Barzal. If I didn't say him, I think I like everyone in the chat should literally call me a liar if I don't say Matt Barzal. Um,
Yes.
I will say that it feels like Matt Barzal is just better Kevin Fiala and more defined, obvious role. But like everything you were saying about the power play and stuff for a guy like Fiala, I think could be a part of Matt Barzal only
Yeah.
with more shooting and more run and more kind of the puck's always on his stick
I was
ability.
floored. Like, I mean, again, I talked about this on Badge Bros, and we'll expand upon it tomorrow. But I was looking into like power play point stuff, and like Kevin Fiala, based on individual points percentage, like IPP on a natural stat trick, like basically the amount of impact he has on the goals his team scores. Kevin Fiala has a goal or the assist, one of the two assists on like 80% of power play goals dating back to the Wild. And I was like, oh, that must be like just in Minnesota or just in LA. No, you split him up as like Kevin Fiala LA, Kevin Fiala Minnesota. Number one's Connor McDavid. I think number two is either McKinnon or McCarr. And then like number three is Fiala. Four is someone else. Five is Fiala. Like this dude just goes places and he's a power play mercenary. So like if that power play can get going with say Brant Clark, and he sort of gets the boost from Byfield at 5-on-5, taking that next step. Like the ceiling is truly, I think, second round next year. Like I don't think that'd be insane to see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of the situations where a guy that we were talking about on the if you were coming over from the Badge Bros, he went from center to wing, and that wasn't priced in efficiently at the beginning, and I think has actually moved in the right direction for
Yeah,
Barzal. While Fiala, I think it's like maybe we've gotten too used to him being the winger that was going in the second and third round, or well, the third, fourth round, like Barzal is now, that we didn't want to do it again when
yeah,
he kind of got there last year. And like you're saying, like could get there again in even a better way because all that's changed is in his direction to go up. So
hmm
yeah, and he'll be well. Actually, he's not even in the next round yet, right?
yeah. Let's cap it after this round because we talked
Yeah,
so much about the 90s and 100s on the Badge Bros and know it was there.
yeah,
So, yeah, you certainly know our targets there by now. But in this range, Sebastian Aho, I talked about as having a ton of exposure to. But it's unfair for me to not say Dougie because I literally said I would take Dougie ahead of, uh, Uyghur, Hedman, Fox. So, like, for me, the target here is clearly Dougie Hamilton, who is just an all rates monster and somehow goes D11 for a team that people are, very much rightly so picking to win the Stanley Cup. And he's the number one with a bullet right now.
yeah. I think Dougie is. It was sort of a situation where Luke Hughes was knocking him down. Luke Hughes is going to miss the start of the year. I think Dougie's fully back where he needs to be. Can you
Yeah.
minimize him for a second? I mean, or did I already
Yes.
say? I mean, I guess if I'm taking Fiala out of the equation, I'd go Aho.
Okay.
Aho's risen a good bit, but that's kind of if I don't have a center by Aho, he's the escape valve. And I think we forget he very quietly had 90 points last year. It's like I don't know. Could he get
Yeah.
100 and go from center 14 to center 5? I think that's there. And like the shooting is the concern again, but I think Seth Jarvis is coming into his own and going to be a bigger catalyst of offense in both regards of like passing and shooting. So I think it's
Yeah.
like wow, that could be a great value. Just double checking the hockey. I'm sorry, I'm distracted over here by looking at my lineup that sucks.
That is fine. I might be completely losing by now. I've not taken the time to
Nothing.
look
Oh
either.
no,
So
nothing's really happened. I was just also putting in a bet that I was going to tweet. Colorado minus 1.5 and the over 6 in Minnesota and Chicago. Yeah, looks like that's the way I want to go here for the bet. I already had Colorado
well,
kind of pegged minus 1.5. I don't
I'm
really get why
really
their
glad
line
you
didn't
shared
move.
that.
Well, people are probably betting on preseason hockey tonight.
I mean, when someone named Inanna is on your top power play, like you just gotta bet on that team to score, a bunch of goals.
There's 0 players for Vegas tonight other than like Keegan Colasar.
No, I know.
And
I know.
they
But
have a legitimate 3 of the
they
best,
have
like
a system.
they have 3 first round ADP talents going for Colorado. I just don't care.
Yeah.
But let's move past that. No one cares. I guarantee no one cares. Let's draft some teams.
Literally nobody. Yes. Let's transition into the draft. Given your location, do you want me to try and share the board?
Yeah, I literally like I won't be able to do it. So, well, I mean, in theory, I could, but I will
right.
just I would have to
Let's
draft on my
see.
phone anyways, which I'm probably just going to
I'm
do
getting it set up,
because
people. Don't worry. Do not panic, everyone. Do not panic. Yes, you're looking at
waiting
this
on
thing that I have not fixed
waiting
since the
on
playoffs.
6, by the way, in case anyone's wondering.
Oh,
But yeah, we'll jump into one,
shoot.
knock it out, and then I mean we're gonna be back tomorrow. I guess while you're doing that, I'll just pitch it. We're gonna go every single team in the league. We're gonna give one prediction. We'll go division by division, give a little bit of our thoughts on that. But it's not just going to be like I'm betting one thing for each team. It may be a situation where I'm going to say I don't think there's any good bets because there just aren't that we have projectable or whatever it be, and just say like since we don't, I think the best way to bet on this team is this. Like for example, you might think, well, what the heck are you gonna do with the Sharks? Well, I think right now it's under on Macklin Celebrini goals is what I have, but I don't know if it's moved at all. But that's originally what I had. But let's say, for example, I don't want to do that. I might just say like the best way to bet on the Sharks is Jake Wallman in fantasy, or like an early daily fantasy where he's going to be 3K. Like I think I'm going to be jamming him in, and you might think to yourself that's not the same, but I might put more money down on Jake Wallman week 1 of daily fantasy than I would have all season on a season long prop. So like, I think to me that's more valuable. I don't know if everyone's going to care as much, but most of them will be bets in general. Matt, any thoughts on what I just said?
No, we'll talk about that tomorrow. I have
Yep.
a full sheet team by team with all the bets I found so far that just trying to figure out what I like, what I don't like.
I got
So
through half of one division last night, and I will be doing the rest because I decided to draft teams instead because that was my. I mean, I'm leaving Thursday for Pittsburgh. I may do some while I drink, but like I don't think I'll have time. And if I miss by like 2 teams, I can't do it.
well, you gotta be paying attention to see if any get voided too.
Yeah, I will be. I mean, I will be
Yeah.
up Friday before lock. It locks at 10:30 something or whatever. Like I'll be up. So I'm not that worried about it. But yeah, I just I'm running out of time and I need 10 drafts. I might do them all tonight. This will be, 9 left after this. I might just get it done and then focus on the betting, but I have a bunch.
Yeah.
Tom just asked
Right.
when they'd be voided. They've been really good about voiding them as we go for NFL. I can't imagine that they're so
Last
stressed that it
last
wouldn't.
year last year there were a handful on the day that it locked. So
But they've changed the mentality there. They should be
okay.
voiding as they go. And if they're not doing it for hockey, it is what it is. But I would expect that it has been done. Like
Okie doke.
I don't
Cool.
think I've had any voided yet, but honestly, I don't think I would just say this. I don't know if I've been in a draft that truly should be voided. Like if someone's drafting bad, that doesn't mean it should be voided. Like it's people that are cheating.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Yep.
rules, but
No,
like
that's fair.
I mean, I posted in the Discord like someone drafted I think
God.
13 Minnesota Wild players. Should that draft be voided? It's like I don't think so. Like that's what they wanted to do. If it was seen that they cheated and that they, for whatever reason, were helping someone else, but that to me isn't cheating. That's just they're losing money.
Come on,
What I
we
mean,
can't
Matt?
get one more, guys. Yeah, no, I do understand.
Okay. Yeah, you're not that stupid yet. Why can't someone just post the Chicago lines? I mean, Bedard's in, right? I just don't. I mean,
We
I know
were
he's
told
in.
he's in, yeah.
I just want to see it. All right, started.
All right, draft board. Get over there. Bang.
I think we know. I mean, I found the rosters again and he was in, but I just wanted to see it. I played by the way, while we're starting up here, I'm picking okay. That's fine. I'm fine there.
All right. How does this
My
look?
roster tonight, Matt, was I won't say who I haven't played yet, but I'm guessing one of them's obvious. I played Pasta, Panarin, Lafreniere, and Olmark early, and then I'm about to lock in Falk, Kaprizov, and Bedard. But I was almost thinking about swapping, but I just don't know to what.
Let's see. Are we back to back? Nope. I get another 7 pick though. Hooray! So much fun.
Is there any defenseman on? Is Seth Jones in? That was the question. Do you think I should swap to him?
I thought I
Go
saw
for
he
that.
was in.
I thought so too. That was kind of my debate. You think I should just keep Falk or swap to Bedard? Or Bedard and Seth Jones? I already have Bedard.
I guess Seth Jones. I don't
Yeah.
think that's a important distinction though.
Oh yeah. Seth Jones is definitely there. They posted a video. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna do
All
it.
right.
Okay. And then I'm just gonna play Makar McKinnon. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was almost considering going with a winger in that game, but I don't even care. I'm not gonna get more chalky than I already am.
I meant to find a goalie that was going full, and I'm not sure I did find one.
Let me see what's left.
Hofer?
I don't. Hofer was the question, I think. I don't
Okay.
know if we got confirmation. I could try. We have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I thought that was likely. They answer if you tweet. Lou Korak normally answers if you want to tweet at him.
I will not be doing such a thing.
Well, all right. Yeah, 2 minutes. You're on the clock.
Yep.
You got the nut roll out. Who's your guy here then?
Yeah. I'm just gonna keep taking some Miko. I think I have a lot of Kaprizov already, so
It almost. By the way, it almost has to be Hofer because Binnington isn't there. It was supposed to be Binnington and Hofer with them, but Binnington's not there. So unless if they brought someone in, yeah, I'd be pretty shocked. Shit, I get the worst possible rollout. I'm just gonna get unique then. I'm gonna grab Kel Makar. I want to get more. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think
I do like
I don't
that.
think
I think we might be slightly underestimating just how much Kel Makar can put away the defense position. So I think that's a pretty good
I think
approach.
kind of just the way I'm looking at the end of this is like, where do I want to get to on certain players? And I feel like if I don't have over $200 on Kale Makar in drafts, that's just not going to sit. Like, I just won't be able to sleep at night. Like, I won't go to bed. I'll just never sleep again. So this would put me at a 180. So I'm going to try to grab him a couple more down the stretch, get over $200, get him up to a nice 8%, 9% range. And I think that's, oh boy, there goes.
That's
That
the move
is
right there.
an unnecessarily big brain move.
Well,
Bedard's not
getting back to him at 36. So if that's his guy, he's got to go get him.
Next year, that might work. That might be correct. And will we learn that it was correct this year is the question. Holy crap.
Oh, wow.
That seems a little egregious to go Connor Bedard, Jack Eichel, but it helps me quite a bit because my concern was I wouldn't be able to get a winger that I liked enough. I'm not as concerned anymore. It's actually going to be, oh boy, this isn't what I wanted, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Jack Hughes. I think this is actually a pretty common thing. And part of what I was trying to do is maybe get a little bit of more of a unique combination, but I'm not going to overthink it. I also have not a lot of Jack Hughes, and as he's flown up the boards, it's been even harder. And I've made the decision as he's gone up to grab Kel Makar. So I guess down the stretch, it's going to be a little tougher to get. So, and Matt, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know in the NFL, it kind of got to a pretty big talking point of like comping or, this uniqueness, I guess, or like maybe getting a little different with how you're drafting, and don't take this player and this player, like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and blah blah blah. Like that doesn't really exist in hockey. Like I don't think you ever have to say like, oh crap, I started these three players. A lot of people start with these three players because I think more than likely you're wrong that exists, and also it just like you know the amount of combinations you're going to have in this 16 for the amount of guys that score. I just don't think it actually makes a difference. But is there any concern in your brain when you're drafting that you're like, oh man, like Matthews Marner is so common, or I don't know, anything like that?
No. So I mean, as no, as a whole, no. Like versus the field, it's not a concern of mine. But like the reason I took Artemi Panarin there is not because I think Artemi Panarin is a better pick this year than Jason Robertson or Sam Reinhart, that I talked about.
Yeah.
But like I'm not getting pretty much any Artemi Panarin. Um,
Yep.
and like when he falls to me in a way that like makes it so that I'm creating a combination that I don't have, then I feel much more confident to go out and reach for the guys that I like, that I think I'm better than the field on, because I'm not just
I
building
don't.
the same team. Like I don't want to build the same team 100 times and just be done with it. Like I do want some level of like texture, and so like taking the fallers like that and getting those unique combinations is just a surefire way to do that within your own portfolio as well.
Yeah, I don't really get why Panarin continues to fall, but also I agree with you that Robertson, Nylander, Panarin, and to a larger extent, I think Reinhardt's right around there as well. Like all of those players are pretty replaceable in my opinion. Like I don't think that any of them are just clear cut above the rest. And Panarin was going like very consistently 11, 12. I think that may have been wrong because guys like Makar, like when you started the drafting, if you started from the beginning like I did, getting Miko and Makar was not hard. It's pretty common
Mhm.
actually to just go like 9, 16, 10, 15, those two. Um, I think that Panarin maybe wrongly has fallen for some reason, but I don't know what it is. Do you think that there's something in this game that isn't? I mean, well, again, it is an
Well,
outlier of the season, but is
it's
he not going to do it again?
yeah, I think it's a combination of two things. One, people are definitely reacting to the schedule. Just that
Yep.
the playoff weeks or the finals in particular, Panarin just is probably not going to contribute to your team. Certainly, he's not going to put away the competition, with his 3-2 games in those final 2 weeks. And then second, yeah, I mean, you're taking him ahead of William Nylander and Matthew Tkachuk, basically, when you're doing that, let alone Jack Hughes and these other guys where you're saying that he's like the 11th, 12th overall pick. It's not like you're saying he can't be a very, very, very awesome fantasy guy. It's that you're saying he can't be a literal, freakazoid who just dominates like the entire field. And I just don't find that to be a super likely scenario. Um, so
Mm.
that's why I think he's falling. It's sort of a combination of just like, you can only tweak his projections so much until you realize that last year just everything went in. He shot way more than he ever has historically. And he's on the wrong side of the age curve. So, like, versus a lot of these guys, none of those things are true, let alone, like, a multiple of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. With everything you said. I just again, I don't know. I guess I have it right around 9% right now, which I'm totally fine with. And I've just been hoovering up when he slips. Um, Kind of like the way this draft has gone. I'm really excited to see what the turn does here because the way I looked at this was I need a wing incredibly desperately, but this person at the turn is an absolute loose cannon that doesn't play by the rules. And if any of
Yeah.
these four wingers get back to me, I'm going to be incredibly happy. Well, they'd all have to go here. I did grab Vasilevsky, so I'm zero wingers through 3 rounds, which is barely ever, maybe two of my draft that's happened in. But yep, I mean there it is right there.
Owen Tippett.
Owen
Yeah.
Tippett, and again, these are all players I like. It's just this is
To
unnecessary. This is
Yeah, and for context, just showing what the board looks like at this moment if you're not drafting along with us. The board right now is Timo, Ovi, Caulfield, and Kempe by ADP. So
I mean,
uh
and I think if you put a gun to my head, I'd say OV1, Caulfield 2, Timo 3, but I'm
Brandon
almost
Montour.
I mean, yeah, this is
Like,
just
is this
but like again, like
me? Am I drafting this team or something?
I think this person put in rankings in his auto drafting, but I don't really get them. I mean, yeah,
Like,
I mean,
someone fed an AI 4 years of the Moinscape podcast, and this is the rankings that they came up with.
I mean, yeah, and then goal plays got Draisaitl, Crosby, Point, Yossi. That's a 3-0. I mean, like, we're
Yeah,
again, like, these are the lobbies you want to get into, and they're out there, and like, they're going to be more of them, which is why I hate that I'm running out of picks. But last night I felt like this was the last chance to get some bags up. You grab Cole Caulfield, absolute no brainer
yeah,
there to go.
yep.
Rantanen, Panarin, Caulfield, Dolly, and I think you have truly an unbelievable team that I never even thought could exist. So kudos to you. Also, if you didn't play Tristan Jarry in that, he has given up 1 goal on 5 shots, and Marquez as well. So you're sitting pretty.
That's great. I don't think I have a goalie playing a full game, but
I think Hoffer is now though, because there's no bidding to. I think that basically did it. I think you actually might have looked into it.
I didn't make the swap.
Who'd you play?
I think I still have Blackwood in. Let's see. Let me refresh.
Oh, I don't know if we knew about. I don't even know if I looked. I know there was a quote about Blackwood too, and I
Yeah,
forgot.
I just put him in thinking I would look it up, and then I never did
I
before
I mean,
7:58.
I certainly don't know if Hoffer's full game or not, but I thought if Binnington was there, I worried, and then he's not. But I
Yeah,
actually did read something.
I'll figure it out. Don't need to talk about it here.
No, no,
I'm
no.
good.
The fans are listening. They want to
I'm
know.
chilling.
Blackwood is expected to go the distance tonight.
Okay. I thought I saw that,
Or
but couldn't find it
I think
again.
I honestly I didn't even think about it till you said it, and as soon as you said it, I'm like, I read that. I'm pretty sure. Okay,
Yep. I
back on
searched
track here.
I searched Blackwood 60, Blackwood 3, Blackwood full, and of course it's Blackwood the distance. Just
It's
it's
the beat
yeah.
reporter is a big fan of the band Cake. Um, it's funny because this draft is loaded with amazing drafters. I mean, Nobo Sox is in here. It's chilling with us.
It's
And
it's just
and
your
yet
little pocket. Your pocket is really opening things up, like the
this happened.
goal plays and
I mean,
mind goblin.
I had it last night. I was in a draft. I picked third, and 1 and 2 were auto picking, just off ADP.
Wow.
And there is
Wow.
nothing you love to see more. You just know. You're literally sitting there like, I know exactly who's going to go and who's left. I'm not saying it's
Yep.
the biggest edge ever, because it could turn into a bit of a disaster depending on what happens. But like, it is
Yep.
certainly an edge to be like, I like this player more than that player, but I like both of them, and I could have them both. Like, um, so
Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely a lot of fun, and it's almost nerve wracking because I'm sitting here like, what if I set up a stack? And I mean, this is truly like someone throwing darts at the board right now. But I mean, does this deserve to be thrown out? I doubt it. Like, I don't think he's doing anything malicious, but if they are, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it does. But
Yeah. Like I don't think so because it's pretty clear that you're like it doesn't seem like they're trying to set things up for like Nobo socks or whatever, like, they're for
right.
you or like it just like that's I think what you need to really get into. And yeah, getting Skinner 3 spots after ADP is an absolute windmill jam for me when I don't have a goalie yet. So that feels
Yeah,
nice. You get a
that's
nice winger here. Like just,
I know.
the, these drafts are the dream. I'll try and find the gumption to get in, like 30 more before lock. But yeah,
Wow.
certainly
Well,
not a sharp lobby, Billy. Sorry you couldn't join us.
I mean, it is funny how like I'm looking at a lot of every team looks good except for like 3, I think. Definitely 2. Nah, just really 2. I mean, just really those 2. Everything else is like
Mhm.
fine. But these 2 are absolute galaxy brain. I don't know. I mean, Fiala is one of my favorite players, but I think I liked a few wingers on the board more. And if this guy truly doesn't take any of Svechnikov, Jarvis, and or Kyrou, I'm saving this winger core with Jack Hughes, Kale McCarr, and Vasilevsky. All right. Well,
Yeah.
due to the unfortunate, he did take Sveshnikov. But
Now is about the time when the idiots just throw on autopilot and walk away. So that could
yeah,
be happening here.
if it happens, it happens. I can certainly take someone else. I think I'm done on Olmark though. I realized just how much I had. Um, I don't know if I'm like losing sleep over it because I do think he'll get a lot of starts, but he is my third highest as far as entry fees. I don't think I can go forward with my life knowing that. I'm gonna do the connecting thing. I've taken quite a bit of him as well. I don't know if you wanted to show that, but yeah, I think that
No, I was
I
pulling it
mean
up for personal reference.
Konechny is probably not going to be with Michkov, it would seem, based on the lines they ran today in practice. I don't know if that hurts him a ton though. Like I don't know. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like, well, he's still with like Forrester and Katerier, but I don't. I think at that point, I needed a winger bad enough. You do take Olmark though, so tell me more about
Yeah,
your love for the Ottawa
I
Senators.
I like Allmark. I think 50-55 starts for him is well within the range, and I was fine taking like a DeBrincat and getting whatever Lukanen or Wall or Darcy Kemper next round, but this is sort of where everything's pretty uh, like I don't really care about this range. The one consideration I had was reaching for Sebastian Aho as the next available center, but I think in this room we're gonna get decent centers in the 1 to 120-ish range because I think this idiot's gonna run out of center slots. Let's
Yeah,
see,
man.
what is he? Yeah, he's at 3-1-1. So like I think he'll get to 6 before the centers truly run out. So like it kind of sucks, but at the same time, like I'm just trying to beef up the rest of my positions so that I just don't lose center here versus reaching on centers that I like but don't feel like overly confident in.
Yeah. We did get a question. I think I can bring it up about deviating from the 3-7-3-3. I kind of probably say this almost every stream, and anytime anyone asks me about this is like, are you doing 150 drafts? I'm probably gonna have 10 to 15 that aren't 3-7-3-3. I think that there's a very likely outcome that within the next couple years, one of the a winning or a top three team or whatever is not a 3-7-3-3, and there's a lot of upside that you could draw from building whatever you want to kind of deviate. It wouldn't go far. It really comes down to draft capital allocation, like where you're putting these things. I think there's some rules that you can't break to actually get to the finals and have a chance to win, as far as getting enough goalie, getting enough winger, getting enough center, getting enough defenseman. That being said, if you run a team that deviates from 3-7-3-3, like just do it with intention. Like that's the point, I think. And like Matt right now doesn't have a center. He's been banging the drum, and every time I share a team, he'll text me and be like, "Nice center room." It's kind of like the nice running back room type of situation, where it's like, yeah, it looks great that you have all those receivers or whatever, but like you need to get enough everywhere. So Matt, are you considering 4 centers on this team that you haven't taken a center through round 6 yet?
Nope, I'm not. I just don't think it's necessary. I don't think I just don't think it's worth the overall like hit that we take, but that's just like yeah, you can take 4 centers if you take the right 6 wings. Doesn't matter how many centers you take. You could take 10 centers, but obviously you can't take 10, but like
Mhm.
you could take 6 centers. Like the team with 8 centers made the finals last year. Like,
How many
there's a
centers?
lot there's a lot of team with 8. The Anthony Crispino guy had 8 centers and made the final. Like it happens because and guess what? Aho makes it back to me. So like
Yeah,
just
there it is.
magical. What a
Literally the
draft.
fail safe.
But like yeah, it's not that you can't do it, it's that the data shows that 3733 is the optimal build. It's the way I built last year and had success. It's the way we built 2 years ago where you had, an enormous amount of success. Plus last year you had a lot of success too, despite
Yep.
the finals not coming through. Like it's worked. So why would I get crazy around it? Yes, you can go 4-6 and 2-8 if you really want to at center and wing and have the perfect build for it. Fine, you don't have to. So like, why am I gonna
Well,
swim upstream? I guess is my
I yeah,
argument.
I would say that the two scenarios I'm going to do it the most are number one, getting four goalies. I've just done a couple drafts where I've decided when the goalie avalanche hits as hard as possible, which it just hasn't. Like again, like I mean, Vasilevsky at 33 every single time. You had the situation where Stuart Skinner slept. Like I'm always going to take them and like take what the room gives you. But I've been in draft rooms where someone's taken three goalies off the rip. I'll just see what I can do with four goalies. Like I don't think that's wrong. That'll probably be 7 or 8 of the 10 to 15. 7 of 10 or 8 or 9 of 15 are gonna be four goalies, and then the other one will probably be either two defensemen and an extra center, or 6 wingers and an extra center. But even on a team where I started with 6 wingers and one goalie, I still actually ended up um, you know what? I'm not going to be a coward. I'm going to take Michkov. I still actually ended up taking 3 centers just because I like the centers. I got enough. And I think that's part of it is like if you actually have projections, which we have at puckluck.com, and you think that there's enough of for example, like Mark Scheifele, I still think is incredibly mispriced. He hasn't even moved up. Well, 140. I think that's just wrong. If I get him and 2 other centers that I think are just mispriced for whatever reason that may be, I'm not really worried about the fact that I only get 3. Like I think I got enough there to cover my basis. But like if I'm in a room where 3 drafters are taking 5 or 6 centers, you could get into a situation where you have to pull a fail safe. Like again, I think we've talked about it a little bit, and there's guys I like for that, or you do have to end up just grabbing 4 and hoping to get there.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to do with that pick. I obviously Zibanejad and Trocheck were really well correlated, so I have them starred to see if they come back to me. But because I have Cole Caulfield, I have a Nick Suzuki safety blanket as well to get my second center in. And so then I was looking at wings, and you look at wing, and obviously Paterka I could reach for, or Gunther, and I'm pretty comfortable with my exposure to those guys. Um, Brian Russ is a guy who I don't know that I love, but I didn't want to take Lafreniere. Marchand I have a lot of, um, so like that was maybe a mistake of mine, but I also didn't need a defenseman. So like Miro was there, but I already have Rasmus Dahlin and I have 2 goalies. So like what does Montembeau really do for this build? I don't know.
Mhm.
Not sure if Kemper was gone. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
this feels like a dead range to me. Not super happy with
Well,
Rust,
are
but like I
you
like the profile and I really want to bet on Sid, even if I'm not taking Sid because that dude rocks.
are you willing to bet on Hagel?
Yes. Again,
Did he
that's
just go? Where is he? Why am I
he's
losing?
similar
Oh,
to
there he is.
Paterka. He's very similar to Paterka for me.
Mhm.
It's just slightly different in how they're going to get their points.
Yep.
Like I think Hagel can do it with anyone. So like, he did it last year with anyone. Sorelli had a terrible
Right.
year, and Hagel was just as good with him as with Kucherov in terms of 5-on-5 point generation. It's just that Hagel doesn't shoot a ton. So like I think
Yeah.
Brian Rust
Yeah.
has an element shots wise that like he could actually centralize the offense onto his stick. So
Yeah. I
like
mean,
I wasn't really excited about reaching for Hagel versus I was okay doing it
no,
for
I agree.
Rust.
I agree with what you're saying. It almost felt like there was something more with Brian Russ last year than just like
Yeah.
he didn't get there, and Crosby really did, and that seemed
Mhm.
like it was almost impossible. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because he's a bad player. Like I just wonder. Like and so a lot of times in hockey, I mean, we either the players will tell us or we'll never know. Like we could have never known what happened with Brad Marchand last year, and then he's just like, hey, by the way, I actually my wrist was completely fucked, and it's like, oh, okay. Like
Yeah.
congratulations, not that I'm not being fucked anymore. I suppose. Um, God, I'm falling into a situation I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Billy, on this question about Corpusalo being a good pick right now, I'm pretty scared of him. I think was it earlier on this show? Yeah, someone earlier said about Clark and Corpusalo. So, but I'm a little worried that the time that really matters is the playoffs. Like, I just don't think Corpusalo is relevant in the playoffs. So I'm fine taking him as a safety valve. Like, okay, crap, all my goalies fell, and like, whatever. I'm just gonna grab my third one in the last round. But I'm still trying to get like a Decord or a Peter Mrazek as my third goalie in, because in the playoff weeks, those guys right now, from our perspective, are still likely to be the starters. Obviously, in practice, that might not be the case, but it's almost a guarantee that Corpusalo, barring injury, is not the starting goalie of the Bruins come the playoff weeks. So like I'm just not super confident that like getting 15% of him or whatever is a good move, despite him helping you in the early stages of the regular season.
Connecty just scored a goal too. Already rewarded. Panarin also left the
Bang.
game with an injury. I'm sorry to tell you.
Again? Oh,
I don't
that's
know.
not good.
No,
Because he
no
was he
idea
was
what it
he
is.
was dealing, yeah, he was dealing with something, and
I'm gonna yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna make a pick here, and I'm gonna ask you your take. And I'm not just making the pick to ask you about your take, but I do wonder about Sergachev being like, so I have I just took Gunther Sergachev, so I'm going full slappy Michkov Gunther. I already have Kel McCarr, so I didn't really don't need a ton of defense still, but is Sergachev a guy that now that we know it seems like he's cemented in that top power play role? It could change, but to start the year he's going to be there. That maybe we're undervaluing at 115, 120 where
yeah.
he's kind of going right now.
Um, I think he's a really good pick. I'm not like breaking down whatever to get to him, but like there
Mhm.
is a huge, I guess, amount of not uncertainty, but like amount of like we just haven't seen him as the big fish on a D line because
Yep.
Victor Hedman existed, and
Yes, he did.
so that's the I'm trying to find in my newsletter where I wrote about the situation specifically because I did write about last year, going in the last year. Um, yeah, like going into last year, Victor Hedman had 50-50 power play share and worse rates than Sergachev, but was a fraction of the cost. So like, if you're saying Victor Hedman goes in the 70s and Sergachev has the Victor Hedman role just with a different team, there's a good argument to be made that Sergachev is worth, a pick in the 90s, for example. Like, I don't think he's getting into the, where Dougie and Adam Fox are going, but getting into those 70s, like, that's a little bit more realistic for me. Into the 80s, maybe, like, if we were to do a redraft, like, I think that's totally possible. Um, I guess one of my overarching takes is I feel like a lot of people drove the Utah bandwagon to the point where almost I'm not comfortable getting on it. Like I think people are
Mhm.
like, yeah, this team's a playoff team, and it's. I guess I'm not quite there, but
Well,
I don't know if that's
yeah,
actually the case,
I
universally or not.
Utah definitely does not have Nikita Kucherov. They do not probably even have Braden Point,
Breaking
and
news.
certainly Stamkos is gone, but that's who was there before. It's sort of like again, if you want to say, oh, like Dylan Gunther is incredibly good and he's playing the Stamkos role, he's still not going to be Stamkos from the years past. I think even with that, the thing about Sergachev is he is an all rates player. I think he'll have 120, 130 hits, 140 hits, somewhere in that range. He'll block shots, he'll shoot. And if the points come along in even anywhere similar fashion, he could be Mackenzie Weegar of last year. And like, think about Mackenzie Weegar of last year. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't on a good team. Imagine if he was on a good team. And it's just sort of one of those situations where I think like we've caught up on all the other parts of that team and a lot of other situations, and for some reason he just hasn't come along for the ride. Uh, so yeah, I'm happy to get him there, throw him in the mix. You didn't get Cutter.
Yep,
I'm not sure if you're going to make it through the rest of this draft, but you
I
did
did
grab
not.
Gustafson. I
It's
kind of wanted to mention Gustafson regardless, so I'll stop if you'd like to say a couple words because yeah, I
yeah.
think he's pretty
There
good.
there was a time. 3 weeks ago when Gustafson was going around Darcy Kemper. And, like obviously Kemper goes a little bit earlier now, but talking about like this mid 90s was where Gustafson was going. We knew that Wallstead was going to be a factor in the net all offseason. And it feels like that's only been priced in now, or now that Gustafson's going in the 115 range. Obviously, he fell way past ADP in this draft. I think he might be 119 now. In any case, somewhere in the 110s. He fell even past that ADP. So, like, whereas I was pretty anti Gustafson a few weeks ago, at this price, I'm totally fine betting on him. Just sort
Yeah.
of capitalizing on the net and having that late season sort of like, okay, Minnesota's in a playoff push. He's our number one. Let's get him out there for 75% of our starts. I could see that
Yeah,
happening. Come playoff time.
I made the point when the Gustafson news came out, and the news was basically that I believe it. Yeah, was it GM, right? It was Bill Guerin that
Yeah.
said he said that oh we want Walston to play games when we think Fleury could play 30 something games, and it's like in the ideal world, every single team would have their goalies play exactly the same amount of games. There would never be a back to back. There would never, all of those things would work out perfectly in magical fairy tale land, and they just don't. They never do. And the thing about Gustafson is he actually good or is he not good? I thought he was just good last year, and unfortunately, with all the injuries and all the chaos and everything that went down in Minnesota, it didn't come through. I think if you're betting on the Wild, I think you're betting on Gustafson stealing at least 45 starts.
Yep.
I that means he should go where he's going. I think you can make a bold case that Ingram is better, and then after that, I don't know if there's a single goalie. The Court is the only other one. Like those
Yeah.
are the three, for sure.
And crucially, who of the skaters here is really going to bury you? I mean, look at the next 10 skaters I go after.
Gabriel
I took
Velarde.
Gustafson. Like, yeah, like is Velarde really putting the season away? Like I just don't think you're risking
My
too
favorite
much
pet
by
tomorrow is
taking
Gabriel
goalie here.
Velarde MVP. So um,
Versus when you're taking Gustafson up here, you're sort of missing out on that final frontier of Hagel, Paterka,
yep,
Gunther, McCann that we were doing, a lot in that stretch. Not to mention the centers like Wyatt Johnston, and like it's
yep.
just a different texture of a few rounds earlier that I feel a lot more comfortable now taking Gustafson, and that's why my exposure has gone up on him. It's not because I'm flip flopping like you accused me of on your show with Mano, but because like the dynamic has just changed on Gustafson in particular.
Yeah, we did get two questions, and we'll probably get to it at the end. Duclair's still on power play one as of now. I don't
Yeah,
think that changes, but
yesterday was really weird. Brock Nelson was not on the power play one, and he was on the roster. Duclair
yep,
was in the Brock Nelson role, which is again really weird. So the Siplikov, the Russian that
yep,
came over and played on the second line, he was in the net front spot. That's where Duclair played both Tampa and in San Jose
yeah,
when he
that's what
got
I was
power
gonna.
play time. So like it feels like Duclair is a power play one guy this season, but it's not a guarantee still. And things are just a little weird there right now. So like I'm holding
Yeah,
off on the Brock Nelson. I just want to let it play out, see if we get anything new in these next couple
I
days.
I think what you're saying is exactly where I'm leaning. Is that I think they know Brock Nelson can do it, so maybe they're just sort of testing a couple little things in case if they need it for any particular reason. But
For
yeah,
sure.
I think Duclair is going to stick. And then Stolars or Samsonov, I think it's they're not. Honestly, I like a Noonan more than either. Um, I'm not
Oh,
married to that. I think you're going to try to convince me off of it. This was, I
yeah,
personally
you
do.
you do not like Alexander Georgiev, and that's okay. That's okay. But I don't think Anunin is the guy that like he was good last year for 17 games or whatever. That's fine. That's all well and good. Uh, the problem is that he doesn't really have pedigree. The organization is not really invested in him, and like Georgiev has been their horse. So like I'm not really sure why we're betting against. Like it feels like worst case scenario Georgiev plays 48 games, barring injury, of course, versus I think in Toronto, there's a real world where Joey Wall plays, 45 starts. I'm not there. Sorry, 35 starts. I'm not there, of course, because like I'm pretty packed on Wall. I like Samsonov a lot because Aiden Hill has never stayed healthy. I don't think he's that good, and the system is awesome in Vegas. Like so if he gets the net, I think Samsonov is fine, but like it feels way more likely to me that Aiden Hill is not playing 50 starts like the draft board is projecting him to, than it is that Georgiev is not playing 50 starts, which he's played more than that in the past too. So that's my take on it. Obviously, you can disagree. That's fine. But yeah, that is why I would sort of talk you out of that.
I should have gone. I literally clicked on Harley and I was like, "Oh, Clark is
You,
gone, right?" And then I looked and Clark was
yeah,
still there, and I was mad at myself. That's why I was making
yeah,
faces. Very stupid move by me, but
yeah.
honestly, is it that stupid? I mean, I don't know.
That's
Thomas Harley is really good.
Yep. Should I have taken Clark instead of Jack Quinn, thinking I might be able to Jack Quinn? I don't know, but I feel good about Jack Quinn, Paterka, and Darlene. It's not directly correlated, but if the power play is pretty good, I should be getting a good week out of one of my wings, which is nice. And I actually maybe prefer that to the inverse. All right, I need to make a selection here. Just pick someone. Let's go with my option at center, who I just default to. McTavish. You did it with John earlier. So, but yeah, I like
Yeah.
McTavish wherever. Sets me up for the Zellweger last round if I want it,
Mhm.
or I have other outs too.
Yeah, my Achilles heel in this draft is probably correlation. It just didn't come together exactly. I thought, well, my first winger in is going to be Jesper Bratt, and that's fine, and ended up being Ovi, which is way better. So I'm
mhm.
not complaining about some of it. I thought, all right, fine, center two it'll just be Bo Horvat. Yep, that's fine, and that didn't happen. And connecting Michkov, I still think that'll be power play correlated. They actually hooked up on that first goal, so we'll see what happens. And then I got Gunther and Sergachev, which I do think if like Gunther's getting there, Sergachev is getting there. And like I know I have Kale McCarr, but like there's a chance that that he could save me on a week that Kale doesn't do well or whatever. And then I'm probably just gonna force a correlation or two to finish it off. But Nugent Hopkins is a guy that I don't have a ton of, and it kind of feels like another guy where it's like, should have we reacted more to seeing him up there with McDavid? Like he didn't see no run there last year, but like not a ton. And the fact that there's there's a very strong correlation to players having peak seasons and playing 5-on-5 and power play time with Connor McDavid. Um, Last year
Yeah,
Hyman, 2 years ago Nugent Hopkins. Like, why couldn't Nugent Hopkins score in this system? Um,
yeah.
and be useful. It feels a little early still, but yeah, that was sort of a question, I guess. I don't know how much Nuge you have.
I actually don't think I have any. The problem is that he's the same position as McDavid, which means
Yep.
you can't stack him with McDavid. Like, I mean, I think
Mhm.
the power of stacking is not in the correlation, but it's in like the schedule management, basically, where if McDavid has 2 games or misses a week due to injury or whatever, you're just sort of filling in like those, with a potential 3 or 4 game week. Like that's why I think the stacking uh, element works as far as like your build as a whole. Doing it in the same position means you can't sort of cover your centers, for example, in that way, and it also means that if Nugent Hopkins has a spike week, well, McDavid's probably the cause of that. And so McDavid's just going to put the slate away that week. Yes, you can obviously survive it and maneuver it, in other ways, but it's really hard for me to see a world where Nugent Hopkins is the guy you had to have because he's at the
Mhm.
same position of the guy who would just be the McKinnon of last year, like where,
Well,
McDavid just goes supernova. So that's why I
but that
don't take
I
him.
mean the
I don't think it's
the
wrong
only
though as a one-off, for
the
sure.
only reason I guess I don't agree is that last year McDavid didn't do the winning, and yet Hyman did. And it kind of feels like you're betting on a similar range of, well, Hyman was going even earlier than that, of course, center, and then we can talk
Mhm.
about positional allocation, etc. But like I don't know if I fully agree that like you're betting against yourself. I think if you've taken McKinnon or Matthews and then you just say, oh, let me cover my bet with taking Nugent Hopkins, it's sort of like you just admitted you lost. But anywhere else, it's sort of like, well, you know what I mean. You're
Yeah,
trying
that's
to make up
fine.
ground.
I get
I
it.
don't know, but
Yeah,
I'm actually
it's
going to
it's
grab. Sorry. There you go.
It's certainly far from the worst argument you've made. Like I could see it both ways, and I don't have any like actual data to back that up. Like so
Yeah, I'm gonna do the
I just
declare
don't.
thing.
And my
Sorry.
main concern is that RNH could easily lose that power play job to Jeff Skinner. Like that's actually my fear, that like he's not locked in as that this might be to that power play job. I don't really give a shit whether he's with McDavid or Draisaitl at 5-on-5, or on his own third line. If he's not on that power play, he's worthless. Like Nuge is just
Yep.
not sustaining fantasy relevance outside of the power play.
All right. My last pick is coming up. I have two centers that correlate very well. I think I know what I'm going to take here, but I'm going to ask you. I'm going to leave it to you. All right. I have Gunther. I have Sergachev. I could go Logan Cooley. I have Ovechkin. I could go Dylan Strome.
I much prefer Dylan Strome.
Yeah, me too. I almost think that's going too far in the Utah bandwagon, especially Cooley is not entrenched in that top power play.
Cooley, yeah, exactly. And Cooley's upside is just gonna make Gunther better. It's not gonna make Cooley a smash fantasy value.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Dylan Strome did it. He showed us he can do it. I think that's better. I'm up to close it out. I'm between Shane Gostisbehere with Sebastian Aho and Olin Zellweger with McTavish and Troy Terry. Have you seen anything on Gostisbehere that has you off of him as
He's
of
still
late? Because
no, he's still
I
top power
know,
play, but it's just the third
yeah,
pairing is the only
yeah.
downside. But
So I'm gonna take him. I want to again. I don't want 25% Zellweger this year, so I was anti Gostisbehere. I still kind of agree with my past self, but
Howard,
there is a chance. There is a chance that the second pair is just the third pair. Like I don't think Orlov is like definitely their number 3 defenseman. So like it's not crazy to see a world where Gostisbehere is actually getting 19, 20 minutes a night in power play time.
yeah, I think it's yeah. I guess my
All right.
opinion on Gostisbehere is pretty simple. It's like when it goes right for you, it goes very, very right for you. And when it goes wrong for you, I think it makes more sense on a team where you already kind of have, Darlene and
Yeah.
stuff where it's like you're I think your spikes are huge. Like that's what Gossip kind of did last year is when he got the run, he spiked, and when he didn't spike. Brent Burns is going to be like 40. So there's a range of
Yeah.
outcomes where Brent
Yeah.
Burns completely evaporates into the mist.
It
And
feels the second I saw Brent Burns as the net front guy in their power play too, I realized, oh, it's actually over for Brent Burns.
yeah,
From a fantasy standpoint. Like he and
that'll be
Slavin
the
should
end
go
of it.
fine. But yeah, so that made me think Gostisbehere might be a decent guy to get like 5-6% of. And of course, when I have an unstacked Sebastian Aho, it makes a lot of more sense. And like you said, with Rasmus Dahlin. So we closed up the draft. I do want to get out of here in about
Yeah.
5 or so.
I want to see
So
Nobo's
yeah.
team. I didn't even. I
Yes,
was noticing it
let's
as
go
we went, but
over Nobo. Let's go over our
he was
teams.
in one of the most interesting spots I've ever seen because
Yes.
you
Hold
had
on. I
two
need to get
lunatics next to
over.
you, and I kind of want to see
Yes.
how it turned out.
All right. So Novo goes Forsberg, Kachuk, Stamkos. I believe that's a value on all three relative to ADP, which
Yep,
doesn't surprise me much given
we're
the
we're
again
not Stamkos
lunatics.
guys, but 35 is not wrong.
And also taking him with Forsberg is just a
Yep,
bet that the power play is just going, immaculately well. And I think it's important that you actually didn't take Roman Yossi here because, like, Roman Yossi probably soaks up a lot of that if the power play does well. But if Roman Yossi is just slightly underwhelming, like, I think having like different outs versus if Naturals fails, I'm completely doomed is actually a better way to approach that situation. Following that up with Timo, sort of going wing heavy for sure. Tim Stutzla, Jordan Kyrou, Aiden Hill, Darcy Kemper, Nico Heischer. That feels
so
like about the way you start 9 rounds here. Starting,
yep.
heavy wing and then getting
I think
2 good centers and 2 good wing or 2 good goalies. Makes a lot of sense. Any thoughts from you here?
No, I guess I don't know if I would have done Stutzel there, but I get that you wanted to pull the shoot on center at some point and his upside. I just don't know if
Yeah.
I guess my thing is the bull case on Tim Stutzel, in my opinion, is Eddie Sebastian Aho. And if you're basically saying that he's better than Sebastian Aho for whatever reason, like I just think that means Brady got there. So I'm just going to end up not really on Stutzel. Like early on in the process, I was drafting a good bit of him. He kind of got steamed up. Like, what are the odds he goes over 90 points? And then what are the odds he goes over 90 points and Brady actually isn't getting all the way home? Like, I don't know if I
So
would have done it, but I'm wrong.
I do. So I haven't looked at the rest of his team. So I want to see how if he correlated Stutzla with the Batherson or
Oh, he took
Sandersons that
Sando. He took
exist.
Sanderson. He did.
Okay.
He did. I did notice
So
that because I was like, oh,
that's what I was
yeah,
going to do the blind reveal of, where I think, I think Wierenski was a value as well there.
yep.
Decord capping up the goalie room, and then Sanderson correlation. Zuccarello wing definitely got pretty dry here. So even
Yeah.
though it's uncorrelated, I think it's fine. I don't love that uncorrelated, of course, but Zuccarello's a fine enough player that has some spike capability. He must have been tuned into the Batch Bros to get on the Brant Clark train. Makes a ton of sense.
I'm
And then he
mad at
took my
myself.
LaFerriere scroll the F down idea. Okay. Um, Nobo, if you're listening, do not take LaFerriere too many more times because he's definitely a really thin option versus the other round, scroll the F down guys. But he is a guy that like will hit, he will block shots, he will shoot,
Yeah.
like if he has the ice time. So like it's not
I
don't ever
yeah.
draft him again, but he's like
It's
certainly
funny.
one of my fancy plays versus like a
Yeah.
truly good
Well,
option there.
it's sort of like you're saying, yeah, like he's going to he could score 100 points less than multiple players that go after him and yet score in your roster more, which makes almost no sense unless if you've actually followed Alex Laferriere, where like he will just have a week where he scores, 5 goals. Like he will have a hat trick this year. I would bet if you could bet Alex Laferriere has 1 hat trick this year,
Yeah.
I would bet that. Like he's
Yeah.
gonna do it.
Dude,
And
Tom,
yeah.
we're on almost 4 hours of streaming. I have no idea what's happening in these preseason
I
games.
did not see anything. Jack,
So yeah,
oh,
check that out.
yeah.
I don't know if he's fine or
Oh yeah,
not.
you got to eat dinner. Holy crap, it's 8:40. I didn't
Yeah,
realize. You're probably
yeah.
getting crushed. Yeah. We did get asked about the 3-hole. If you want to go, I'll cover the 3-hole.
All right, I'm gonna take off because yeah, we
Yeah.
should go. But if you want to
Make
close
it.
it up, have fun.
Can you make it full screen so I can see everything because I can't like, control it and I can't also stream it or like whatever. I just make everything full and I can look on my own. But we're just
I
gonna do
don't.
this. You go. I'll close this out.
I literally don't
You
think you can even.
Yeah, that's actually not even viewable.
It's not useful at all.
Scroll in a little bit. I'll run through it. Darft. Is
All
that
right.
you? Kyle Black. Oh yeah. How about Darft? That's got to be you.
See you
I
guys.
clicked on your team and it said you had 0 players. Bye, Matt. We'll talk soon. I'll close this out. Yeah, I mean, every draft you get Austin Matthews in is a win. Again, it's one of those situations where, like, gun to head, I think if you said who is going to score the most points in Underdog this year, I would say Austin Matthews is maybe the most likely. But I don't think it's by a lot. And over the course of the entire season, it's even less. Like you break it down by week, etc. All 3, McDavid, McKinnon, and Matthews are very close. And I don't know if there's any reason that you have to get completely overweight on any of the 3. But I do think Matthews is just clearly one of the best players in the world at scoring in this system. He shoots more than anyone. He scores more than anyone. Very useful skill. You paired that with Mitch Marner. Obvious. That's good. No problems there. I'm not as high on JT Miller. I get it for sure. And I think that you did the right thing not taking another center till the very end. Miller definitely will, he hits a ton, which is actually useful. Like some players, it doesn't make a big difference, but this guy has, 200 hits and 100 points. That's very rare in this format. So I do think it's like justifiable. I just don't normally do that. I would have gone Kyle Connor, but that's more of a bias than anything. Yeah, Carter Verhaeghe, that's very much a catalyst for me of the fact that he is going to be with Barkov and Reinhardt. I think that boosts him just a little bit, not a ton. I know Matt the Truck is incredibly useful, but I actually think that that's like minorly better for him to get to where he wants to go because I don't think Reinhardt's quite the rate shooter that he showed. He's definitely the goal scorer that we saw, and I wonder if Verhaeghe could repeat those shots, if not have more, and get back to maybe that 40 goal form. Sorokin, yeah, no problem with Sorokin. He's sliding because of the back injury. We haven't seen him. I worry about him to start the year. But Montembeau will see a ton of run. Mrazek will see a ton of run to hopefully supplement a slow start. But that's definitely like they wanted him healthy. He clearly wasn't healthy at the end of last season. And if he's healthy and good to go, which it sounds like he should be, they should be fine. Patrick Waugh, unsurprisingly, is giving us no news, but I'm not too worried there. DeBrincat, Raymond, they're actually going to be 5-on-5 correlated, so that's fine, and they should be power play correlated. I don't really have an issue with it. It's just like, Larkin's going to get there for sure. If that's the case, it's probably not like I think DeBrincat's fine on his own. Like I don't think you needed to force that correlation. I'm guessing you wanted Brock Besser and he got sniped on you. I probably honestly would have gone goalie just because of Sorokin's slow start over Raymond, just because I think if you don't have Larkin and both of them get there, it's going to be kind of weird. But not it's fine. It's not like it's wrong. It's not like I think you've already banked enough points to where you can get unique and say that Detroit goes insane in the playoffs for best puck and you could win. After that, it was Morgan Riley. Correlation makes perfect sense. I think he's still a value. Seth Jones, I've gone over a ton. Busnevich, value, no problem. Toffoli, you may have been trying to get that Macklin Toffoli situation, but didn't work out. I think Macklin went a little bit before you picked, but I can't scroll down right now and see. I think honestly everything here makes sense. I'm honestly getting more and more Malkin. Like he's been electric in the preseason, which normally I don't care a ton about, but I think he's, like I think he's fine. And like last year didn't work out, but I think that the low rates are not going to continue. But more than anything, the 18 power play points was like half of the previous season, maybe even more than half. I just don't really think that that's something that makes a ton of sense. Like no one else really peaked other than Crosby. Like how does that happen? I talked about how Russ didn't really get there. It seems like Pittsburgh was somehow getting there despite a lot of bigger issues. And they still missed the playoffs. And I wonder if they go come back a little bit healthier after not being in the playoffs and actually could be a bit more of a force. Like people are counting them out, and I think that could be wrong. Yeah, Matt, I'm not going to go over his team. I'll go over my team for a couple seconds here just to go over a couple of the players I really like that I took, but I think I covered it pretty well. I don't think if I talk any more about Michkov, Gunther, or Velarde, I think I truly will turn into one of them. But I will just say that I think as I close up my draft process, I'm going to be getting Markel Makar. That doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean that that's right. You can take whoever you want, for sure. I just personally, and Matt, and again, like sometimes Matt kind of beats around the bush on something, and then I say like, that's a really good point. Like make it exactly. The thing about Kale McCarr is I think he could bury a lot of people. Like I'm not saying he is going to become must have, but if we get something like we got last year, and again, let's think back to last year, Nylander and Forsberg became incredibly optimal, and they were like second, fourth round, fifth round picks. If Matt Barzal, again, that's kind of again a bit intentional, right? Like I look at a player like Barzal and Ovechkin and say, like, could they end up going into a range that they're not going right now? Like, if that does happen, that could make Kale McCarr, advance at like a 22% range. And if that happens and you have some of the right pieces around it, you can get past some of those McDavid, McKinnon, and Matthews teams is sort of my thought process, which again, I almost think it makes the Jack Hughes a little bit even more of a interesting point to spin on, which I didn't expect to get. And I'm not making it the biggest priority in the world. I got very lucky that the 12 hole just drafted kind of nuts. But I do think that's an interesting thing to say. Like, if Jack Hughes does get back to what we saw when he was basically an MVP, does that get you to a situation where you have enough at center to capture enough to get near those top three, plus you absolutely nuke all of them at defense? That's kind of, again, that spin that I'm trying to throw on it. So yeah, I had to save myself at wing, which is why I took all those guys I took are all guys that I think have incredibly high upside, not only on the season, but week to week. And scoring is a big part of that. But I really think that, like, if Matt Barzal had 100 points, I wouldn't be surprised. If Ovechkin did get back to 40 goals, I wouldn't be that surprised. And last year could be a bit of a one-off. And we've gone through the analytics. The analytics point to Ovechkin having way more fantasy success than he did. Is it age exclusively? I'm not saying you have to bet against it as much. I mean, again, Matt wrote an entire like 2,000 words on Ovechkin, which if you haven't read yet, you should go read. But I do think that like this is a team that I feel like is incredibly high upside, which again is why, then not why I took Nugent Hopkins. It wasn't like I want to continue on that trend. I just also think that Nugent Hopkins is a bit undervalued for like what he could be. And betting on players in any space, I think that a successful strategy over all sports, I don't know anything about baseball or basketball, so correct me if I'm wrong, is taking a player that has shown that level of success and then dropped off and figuring out why they dropped off. And if there's not a good reason behind it, jumping back on board, because people that felt burned will not go back. Ovechkin's one of those players. And I think Ryan Nugent Hopkins is another. Where last year I was pointing out, and again, like it was seeming like he wasn't going to be on McDavid's line, and we pointed out why he was going way too early. He slid down the board, but still, like a lot of people got burned there by Ryan Nugent Hopkins. People won't go back, and jumping on some of those guys, I think is very valuable. I'm not sure if there's anyone else here Sergachev, but like that was a fluke. I mean, he snapped his leg. What are you going to do? Like, I don't think that's really part of the reason why. Vasilevsky's kind of too, though, right? I mean, like, why didn't Vasilevsky get there? Well, he got hurt right before this. Like, he was getting drafted, then the season starts, and he misses. I think it was a preseason injury. And if you look at the end of his year, no one started more games. I don't know if there's many, if any, goalies that outperformed him after January 1st. Like the guy got 30 wins in half a season almost. Like I'm not saying he should go one. Like I still think Saros is the best. Well, Saros and Hellebuck, I think, are the best two. And I think you could interchange them a bit, which is why I don't have a lot of Hellebuck. It's just like I'm willing to. I think you're losing a lot more at wing by not taking a Sam Reinhart than you're gaining by taking Hellebuck instead of Saros. So that's kind of why that's going to happen for me. Like you got to think about what you're giving up to get that, which is a team that is going to probably not be as good as they were last year, even though I love Winnipeg. I'll make maybe 2 more points here and get out of here, but let me just read this. Don't mean to keep you guys leave. Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me go scroll back. We may have missed some stuff. Oh yeah, a bunch of questions. We did that. Something I've been doing in my lap for the last person in each position is looking for some swingier weeks. Okay. Yeah, I don't even know if that's really a question. I'm trying to helps your breakouts. Yeah, I mean, trying to find 2 to 3 of those things to help tiebreakers. I mean, yeah, like I did an article on this before last year. That was essentially, it was called The Pillars of Drafting. And a lot of the things that were in there have been carried over. And like, if you haven't read the manifestos that Matt wrote, like that's number one. But like, I think the number one thing that you should care about is always ADP value. We're to the point now where we can't project where things are going to move to, but ADP value is still, I think, number one. Number two is drafting. I think it's probably draft capital allocation. That should be your second decision maker, where, if it depends on where you are. And like I say this, let's just start over really quickly. Like look at my beginning of my draft, Cale Makar and Jack Hughes. And then I, went green all the way basically down the board and 2 goalies. Like that's how you do that though. You have to be very intentional about how you're allocating your draft capital at every pick, but take what the board gives you to start. So like I took defense, center, goalie. Now my biggest thing is still ADP value, and second is draft capital allocation. I am almost putting them even at that point because I need to get wingers no matter what, or else I'm losing that position, which you cannot lose. So those are the 2, and then correlations 3. And then after that, I think you start to mix in some of that scheduling, and making sure that you're not only, I would say that like, I explained this a lot in the thing I wrote, and I think Matt too, as well, a little bit. Like you should really, if you've missed out on a position, try to take a player that that performs well in this system. And an example of that is Jack Quinn, in my opinion, where it's like if he gets there and you kind of need him to, and that's what I talked about with John, he gets there with shooting a ton, and then it's rewarded in this system. So you're kind of like making a double bet together in the system you're betting or you're drafting in, because shots are one whole point. So yeah, I would say those are probably the decisions that you're making that should go in that order. And again, I think one of the biggest mistakes that drafters make, if I would say the number one mistake, is that drafters will always default to correlation being number one, and it's not. That is not the biggest decision maker that you should have. Like that's probably often three. And I think at the end of drafts, it kind of moves up though, like because of what you're trying to capture. So like as you go down the board, you'll see often I'm correlating more because I'm making a bigger bet on my early picks. Because if you take Matt Barzal at 57, that is a ton of capital you gave up. You're saying you're right. Always draft like you were correct. If I'm correct on Matt Barzal, I think Anthony Duclair is also going to be correct. If I already took Bo Horvat, it might not be necessary, but I didn't get Bo Horvat, so that bumped him up even more. That's why I was like, well, I really like a couple centers, but I can't miss this part. Ovechkin's the same thing. Like I'm taking Dylan Strome, I don't know, 7 out of 10 times. If I need a center, maybe 9 out of 10 times, because if Ovechkin scores 40 goals, Dylan Strome is getting there. And it's not that he needs to score a lot, like he's my last pick, but like I'm making a bigger bet now on Ovechkin that I've already invested so much capital in. Whereas early in the draft, which is why I don't have a lot of Stamkos, and I think that people, um, Stamkos might be a bad example. Let's try to find someone else where it's like people early on in the draft window were forcing when they took Kaprizov, they were forcing Matt Boldly up into the like Crosby range at like 36 where he went. I think that's worse process because you're using way too much capital on a correlation that even when you're right, it's not going to be as impactful. Does that make sense? That might make sense. It might not. I went way too long on that. Um, yeah, I mean, I'll just get to this and I'll close out. Favorite targets of round 16. And again, I think I just went into great detail on how you should frame that because there's so many. That's the beauty of hockey drafting is that in round 16, you're still probably taking power play one, line one or two, winger or center, etc. And again, I think that you should narrow that by trying to correlate, especially with an early pick when you can. Of course, some players it's impossible and some it is. I'll give a couple for each team if I can. Edmonton's impossible. You just can't do it. There's really no player late in the draft. McKinnon, it's Jonathan Drouin. I absolutely agree with what Matt was saying. I think that there's a lot of smoke, but a constant is that I think Drouin sticks with McKinnon. And if that's the case, then I'll be getting some of him. I had a lot and then whatever. Matthews, I really don't think there is anyone. I know people will say Matthew Nyes. I don't think that's necessary in any capacity. Like Marner is the guy, and then after that, I just don't think anyone but Riley makes any sense there. Pasternak, if you didn't get Lindholm, you're probably screwed. Kucherov, there's no one. Everyone goes super early. Brady, I don't think there's anyone either. Miko, again, Lehkonen. I think that you could make a case for McKinnon there, but I just don't think they ever correlate at 5-on-5. But I do think Rantanen, there's a chance that it's Middlestad, Lehkonen, and Rantanen, which could all correlate on the power play as well if things went right. I think that correlation is not going to get seen a lot, and I will be trying to get it down the stretch. Kaprizov, it's Zuccarello. Kale McCarr, it's both of the two guys I already mentioned. Well, yeah, I mean Brady Stutz. I'm just talking about guys at the end of drafts right now exclusively that you could stack, not just a stacking mate, but like just guys at the very tail end of drafts. I'm not taking either of Forsberg's line mates, ROR or Nyquist. It just seems unnecessary. Like I think you could try to find a way to put ROR in there, but like Ryan O'Reilly, just I never taking him over Mason McTavish. So if he's gone, then he's gone. Other than that, guys I have a lot of, I'll just read off a couple names and then I'll get on out of here. 9 o'clock was probably my cutoff time, but wanted to give the people the goods. Pull up my exposures. I'll go through positions. Center, I still have a decent bit of Fantilli, but I'm probably not drafting a ton of him anymore. I still think he's pretty good, and we don't know about that power play. But like he actually hits and shoots a ton, so I think he's fine. McTavish is going to move up closer to one of my higher owned players overall. Strome is going to be up there as well with some of my higher owned players at center, at wing. The highest owned last round guy for me is going to be Lehkonen no matter what. I don't think that injury is going to hurt him as much as people think. And if again, just look at his playoff numbers and like tell me that this guy can't do it. The propensity to shoot is only magnified by the fact that I think Middleside can actually distribute the puck well. So I love him. Other than that, at the very end, Jack Quinn's, I mean, it used to be, but not anymore. Bertuzzi, I love Tyler Bertuzzi, honestly. That's one that doesn't get drafted all the time. And I think if you've taken Bedard, if you've taken Seth Jones, or even if you haven't, like, I still think he could be very, very good. All rates kind of guy. And then Schmaltz, I mentioned. And defense, I'm trying not to do as much anymore, just trying to get a couple, I think that got picked pretty clean. Definitely Justin Falk. He'll be up there in my top, 5 defensemen for sure. Most of the others have been picked pretty clean at this point. Like it used to be a lot easier. Brady Clark is kind of gone. And then goalies, it used to be Dostal. He's gone. I'm still going to be drafting a couple more Noonan teams. Matt doesn't like it, but whatever. Other than that, and again, like pull up my Boston exposure. I have like a good little clip, 5% on Corpusalo. Too bad that ship's kind of sailed, but I think that should be enough to probably get everyone on their way. Oh shoot, I got to remove Matt. I'm gonna get off the casting couch now. This was fun out here, though. This was a nice experience. I'm gonna watch hockey, and get probably 3 or 4 more drafts in before I'm gonna get down to 5, I think. So thanks everyone for joining tonight. Thanks for joining a double stream. We'll be back tomorrow. Final stream of the preseason, really, I think. Yeah, it will be. And then we'll be streaming for the Tuesday DFS slate. So we'll be getting in all of our preseason bets. I've already posted a couple, and I'll give you the best way to bet them. And it's not, again, like I've already talked about a little bit, but it's not even just going to be like, oh, I think the best way to bet on this player or this team is like, there will be some correlations that we really love that we're going to say, like, if you actually think that this is going to happen this way, and there's going to be unders, okay? Don't call the cops on us, all right? Don't do it, but we're going to bet unders. I promise. And we'll do all of that tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's probably the stream I've been trying to figure out the most, and I think it's the best way to do it. So thanks for coming in, from Matt, from Doug, who I know we haven't seen in a long time, but we'll be getting together with him soon. And myself, this time DJ. Have a wonderful night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.